Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. After ignoring his gift for several years, a doctor discovers that he can talk to animals and must save the life of a sick tiger. Today we will recap the story of the 1998 movie, Dr. Dolittle. When John was a child, he discovered a gift that made him different from everyone else. He could talk to animals. His best friend was a dog, who taught him many behaviors of his species, such as the habit of sniffing other people's bottoms to greet them. Upon seeing his son's strange attitudes, Archer Dolittle invited the reverend of the church to come to his house and exorcise the boy, because he believed that his behavior was the result of something evil. However, when he sees the boy being swung from side to side, the dog rushes to his aid and bites the reverend's leg. After this traumatic episode, Archer decides to get rid of the dog and, with tears in his eyes, John sees his best friend for the last time. After that, he never spoke to animals again and decided to follow his father's lead. John Dolittle grew up and became an adult like any other. Over the years, he started to ignore the fact that animals also have feelings and started to treat them as inferior beings. John had two daughters and, ironically enough, began to treat his daughters as his father had treated him during his childhood. Unlike her father John, Maya loves animals and is currently caring for an egg she found in the park. The girl tries to convince her father not to take her to summer camp so that she can see the birth of the baby. However, John wants the girl to make friends and, according to him, the best way to meet people her own age is to spend some time at the camp. After breakfast, Dolittle goes to work. He has become a successful doctor and has opened a renowned clinic together with two other partners. Mark is excited about the proposal they have received to sell part of the company, but Gino is wary, because he believes that if they sell the company to a large company, they may want to make major changes and the practice will no longer be the same. As he is outnumbered, Gino's insecurities are ignored by his partners and Mark informs John that on Saturday morning the three of them are to meet with CalNet's corporate team. Dolittle had intended to travel with his family that weekend, but Mark has managed to convince him to postpone the trip, as this will be a very important meeting. Now that everything is settled, the doctor goes to see his first client of the day. Mrs. Parkus regularly shows up at the office with an allergic reaction, because she can't help eating seafood. That Friday, after work, John helps his wife pack for the trip. The idea is that she goes ahead with the children, as he must go on Saturday afternoon, after the meeting. However, when she is about to leave the house, Maya realizes that Rodney, her guinea pig, has escaped from his cage. So her father promises that he will find the rodent and take Rodney with him on Saturday. When his family leaves home, John distributes dozens of mousetraps around the place in an attempt to capture the little guy. What he didn't imagine was that he would be surprised by Rodney during the night. The guinea pig climbs into bed and walks under the blanket until he is found by the man, who begins to scream desperately when he sees the animal right in front of him. After the fright, he manages to capture the creature and puts it back in its cage. Minutes later, the phone rings and the doctor has to run to the hospital. Once there, he discovers that the emergency was in fact just another allergic reaction of Mrs. Parkus. When she arrived at the clinic, the woman said she would only accept to be seen by Dr. Dolittle, and the intern saw no other option but to call the doctor. However, John gives the boy a hard time and orders him to fix the situation next time instead of waking him up in the middle of the night to apply an anti-allergic to the patient. On the way home, after seeing Mrs. Parkus' huge backside, John has a slight accident while trying to dodge a dog that was in the middle of the street. The doctor manages to brake, but when he looks out the window he realizes that the dog has been hit. Suddenly, the animal gets up and, before leaving, directs John to pay more attention to the road. Confused by what has just happened, he continues on his way home and the next morning goes to meet with Dr. Calloway as arranged. The man is a representative of CalNet, the company that wants to buy his company, makes an initial offer of $4 million. Seeing all those zeros, Mark feels very satisfied, but Gino wants to clear up some doubts. He asks if there will be any cuts in the team, and Calloway says that some employees will need to be laid off. This news makes Gino and John uncomfortable, because they know how important that clinic is for all the staff working there. However, before he can say anything, the doctor begins to hear strange voices and soon realizes that they are coming from the animals nearby. Startled, the man bids farewell to his companions and ends the meeting, stating that he must go to an important appointment. Upon arriving home, he immediately packs up his things and hits the road, on his way to the country house where his family is staying. During the drive, Rodney, who is in the driver's seat, starts talking to him and John has to park in order not to cause another accident. The man cannot believe what is happening and thinks he is living a nightmare. In an attempt to get rid of this problem, he takes the guinea pig out of the car and decides to leave it behind. However, seconds later, John starts thinking about his daughter and remembers how much Maya loves that animal. He then backs up and orders Rodney to be quiet for the rest of the way, Otherwise he will be left on the road. The poor rodent goes with his cage attached to the roof of the vehicle during the journey. When John arrives at the country house, he discovers that his father is also there. Maya rushes to rescue Rodney while her father tries to act normal after what has happened. When evening comes, John gets ready for bed while Lisa uses the bathroom. Suddenly, the man hears an unfamiliar voice calling out to him. The doctor is surprised to discover that he has received a visit from an owl, which asks for his help in removing a stick that is stuck in its wing. She claims that John has become famous and all the animals in the area have learned about the human who can talk to bugs. Then, when Lisa shows up, her husband tries to convince her to go back to the bedroom and asks her to go to bed. John goes into the kitchen to get a drink of water when he hears Rodney talking to him. As if this were not traumatic enough, several other forest animals approach the house to ask for favors. At this point, John freaks out and runs to the car. Lisa tries to stop him, but he says that he needs to get back to the city. On the way, he calls one of the doctors who works in his clinic and asks for his help to do an X-ray. When he arrives at the hospital, the outburst continues and this time he hears two rats fighting on top of a garbage can. After the examination, Sam claims to have found no abnormalities and says that this outburst of hearing animals talk is nothing more than the result of overwork. On Sunday morning, the doctor calls his wife and says that he will soon return to the house in the country. However, as soon as John hangs up the phone, he sees the same dog that he ran over being taken away and decides to go after him. When he gets there, John hears several dogs asking for a home, but only one of them is the lucky one who manages to fall out of that place. John felt guilty for running over that dog and decided to reward him by getting him out of the shelter. However, when they leave the shelter, Dolittle states that he has paid his debt and wishes the dog good luck. However, the dog doesn't intend to return to the streets and pretends to be feeling ill so that the doctor will take him home. John receives a phone call from his daughter and the animal starts barking. When Maya hears the dog, she is extremely happy and tells her mother that her father has adopted a puppy. Lisa picks up the phone and asks if this is what her husband went into town to do. This was the perfect excuse for John, so he decides to take the dog to meet his new family. On the way, the man discovers that the dog does not have a name, and together they decide that from that day forward the dog will be called Luck. Lisa feels very happy with her new pet, but at the same time is sad that she has to stay at the camp. During the night, John returns home with Luck while his wife returns in the other car with Charisse. Meanwhile, the owl tells her colleagues about how she was helped by the human, and they decide to pay Dr. Dolittle a visit. The doctor is about to have a relaxing night with his wife when he hears the doorbell. To his surprise, when he answers the door, he finds 3 sheep. The man quickly closes the door, but it is too late, for the house is already infested with animals of all kinds. He tries to put a goat out when he spots Charisse walking toward the bathroom. To throw her off, John informs her that Luck has just used the toilet, so he needs to check that everything is clean before his daughter can enter. As the girl enters the bathroom, the goat runs out of the house and Dolittle chases after it. As Dolittle opens the door to chase the animal away, the 3 rams enter the house and are followed by 2 dogs, a bird, and a pig. Before the man can close the door, 2 penguins and a rooster invade the place. With the whole farm inside, the doctor decides to listen to the complaints of these animals and help them with their ailments. After doing couple therapy with 2 pigeons, John counsels a monkey to get rid of alcoholism and tries to help a dog overcome his obsession with tennis balls. When he least expects it, Dolittle is visited by a police horse who claims he will be fired because he is unable to see. The doctor then invents some glasses, using 2 magnifying glasses to form a pair of lenses for the equine, which allows him to see again. At the end of the service, John is happy to be able to help all those animals, and then the drunken monkey shows up with a new problem. The demented monkey has let the circus tiger out of its cage, and now the feline is planning to throw himself from the top of a tower. Even though he is afraid, Dolittle goes to him to understand the reason for his distress and Jacob states that he is feeling a terrible pain in his head and will jump to end his suffering. Upon hearing this, the doctor states that he is there to help him, but first he needs to get him back to the circus. Since he is not a veterinarian, let alone a feline expert, John needs to study the tiger's case before he can figure out how to cure it. The next day, during his spare moments at the clinic, John studies about feline anatomy to learn the best treatment for his patient. When Mark goes to his office, John tells his colleague that he had to deal with an emergency the night before and it reminded him of the best years of his life. According to him, the most exciting time of his life was when he graduated from college and started attending. Dolittle was still making little money at this time, and this allowed him to be closer to his patients. But for Mark, all that matters is money, and he can't wait to sell that company. During his studies, the doctor calls Dr. Fish, a veterinarian specializing in felines, to ask some questions. That same day, John goes to visit the tiger at the circus and tells him that he has not yet figured out how to treat it, but promises that he will take care of it. When he returns to the clinic, Dolittle spots the same rats that were fighting in the dumpster a few days earlier, but this time one of them needs help. He takes the animal to the emergency room in a paper bag and begins to examine it. Lisa arrives shortly afterwards and is terrified to see her husband treating a mouse. His coworkers also enter the room and are startled to discover that John is talking to animals. Suddenly, the rodent collapses and the doctor believes he has suffered a cardiac arrest. John performs mouth-to-mouth breathing to try to revive the patient. While massaging the creature's chest, it starts making strange noises and Dolittle discovers that his patient's problem was just gas. Concerned about her husband's mental health, Lisa decides to put him in a psychiatric hospital. There, John meets up again with Blaine, a former college friend. The director of the clinic has a pet cat that hates him, just as he hates John, and soon Dr. Dolittle befriends the feline. To prove that his colleague is completely insane, Blaine decides to conduct an experiment. He connects an orangutan to a brainwave monitor. Normally, the monkey responds to visual stimuli, but if John really is able to talk to animals, he will be able to stimulate the creature's brain through a simple conversation. John makes an effort to start a conversation with the monkey, but the creature ignores him. After a few unsuccessful attempts, Blaine asks a doctor to bring Dr. Dolittle to his room. As he was leaving the room, John hears the orangutan talking and discovers that his native language is Spanish, so the animal could not understand him. John knows that the only way to leave that place is to admit that talking to animals is a figment of his imagination. So he calls home and leaves a message for his wife. However, Rodney answers the call and Dolittle begins to argue with the guinea pig. A doctor from the sanatorium spots the argument and this only serves to make matters worse for the man. Meanwhile, at the circus, Jacob is already losing hope that John will return to treat him. Luck goes to visit the feline and realizes that he is getting worse and worse, so he goes after the doctor for help. Upon seeing the dog, Dolittle gets angry and claims that he had a perfect life before the animal appeared and started talking to him. When Luck leaves, John begins to scream and two other patients in the mental institution start to stare at him. The next morning, he goes to Blaine's office and says that he needs to go home. His former classmate says that this will take at least a month to happen. This being the case, Dolittle decides to use his last card up his sleeve and states that if Blaine does not discharge him immediately, he will tell all of his college classmates about the ballerina costume he has stored in his closet. Thanks to his friendship with Blaine's cat, John had access to this secret and could use it as blackmail to get out of that place. Upon arriving home, Dolittle is surprised to see Maya. The girl was supposed to spend 3 weeks at the camp, but was brought back because she did not adapt to that place. After seeing his family, the doctor goes to the clinic and decides to focus all his attention on his work, ignoring any animal that tries to talk to him. When he gets home, John gets ready to attend a press conference and finds his father in Maya's room. The girl introduces Rodney to her grandfather and says that the guinea pig also wants to go to the event. However, her father orders her to put the rodent in its cage and go get ready. When John leaves the room, Maya reveals to her grandfather that she was happy when she learned that her father can talk to animals. The girl states that she would like her father to be weird, just like her. Finally, she states that she will try to do things her father's way instead of following his weird tastes. However, Archer advises his granddaughter to continue being as she is, because sometimes it is the parents who need to change, not the children. Apparently, the man regrets mowing down John's talent when he was still young. Dolittle is hiding behind the door and overhears the entire conversation. After leaving his wife and daughters at the clinic, the man drives to the circus with his loyal friend, Luck, to rescue the tiger. They sneak out so as not to attract attention, but are caught by the guards. However, since everyone was already inside the car, they managed to escape. By now Lisa is worried about her husband's disappearance and Mark even more so, since if John doesn't show up, Calnet will give up on buying the company. Maya sneaked Rodney into the press conference and the guinea pig managed to escape from his cage. The rodent enters the bathroom and gets stuck by the buttocks of Mrs. Parkus, who has hidden to eat crab. While enjoying her meal, the woman hears a noise and is startled to see the animal inside the toilet. Dolittle and the tiger arrive at the hospital and the police show up shortly thereafter. As they go upstairs to the operating room, Luck goes for help to stop the cops from entering the clinic. During the event, Gino accidentally slams the door on his partner's nose and Mark goes for an X-ray examination to check if his septum is broken. When they arrive in the room, they find John with the tiger and are in despair. Mark tries to convince Gino to anesthetize the animal and then get rid of it, but Gino ends up punching his partner and putting him out for good. With the help of his friend, Dolittle takes the tiger into the operating room without attracting the attention of the reporters. However, upon seeing his future collaborators, Dr. Calloway pulls them in for an interview. Meanwhile, the tiger spots the guinea pig in the soup and comes out of hiding to prey on it. In this instant, the event turns into chaos and the guests despair. John tries to calm them down and informs them that he needs to perform emergency surgery on that animal. Meanwhile, dozens of vehicles arrive to arrest Dolittle for stealing the tiger, but the cops are surprised to see dozens of animals surrounding the perimeter so they can't break in. Seeing her husband operating on a tiger, Lisa doesn't know what to do and thinks about sending him to the hospital again. However, Mr. Archer claims that John, in fact, can talk to animals. The man says that this gift came when his son was still a child, but he did not believe it could be true and even thought John was crazy. However, seeing his son's talent manifesting itself once again, Archer is certain that he possesses a special ability. Gino helps Dolittle perform the surgery and the doctor tries to keep his patient awake throughout the operation. Seeing her husband's difficulty in keeping the tiger conscious, Lisa enters the room to help him and holds the animal's paws. At the end of the surgery, Jacob's pain disappears and the doctor informs all the guests that the procedure was a great success. When he wakes up, Mark immediately goes to see Dr. Calloway. The man then enters the operating room and praises Dolittle's work, stating that he cannot wait to sign the contract. At this point, John informs him that he has given up on selling the company, but Mark continues to insist on the idea of selling at least his part of the business. While discussing this alternative, the petty man is bombarded with pigeon droppings along with the bald doctor. Days later, Luck and Rodney witness the birth of Maya's baby. The egg breaks and an alligator comes out of it. Now the family has just gained a new member. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.